It is very, very cold out today, or at least compared to how it has been the past few weeks, past few months, I should say.
Yeah, because you've had kind of a weird fallish, winterish, summerish.
It's more like summerish, fallish than it is fallish, winterish.
Yeah. I feel like we're speaking elfish. Yeah.
I know, right? Like we're Lord of the Rings or something here. We finally got snow today. It's currently snowing. Just a light flurry, and it's not cold enough to actually stick on the ground or anything. But it's nice to actually have it feel like winter. But at the same time, it's not nice because my body's not yet used to it.
Yeah, that's true. It's just a bit of an abrupt transition.
Exactly. Yeah. Normally in fall, you have that slight transition, like a little bit softer than what it's been. 2 weeks ago is in like
that's
the 70s,
so weird.
though.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just nice that we have some sort of precipitation because we have not had rain in like 30 days or something insane like that. It feels like California.
Yeah.
Like it's very dry, very weird. I told you about in previous episode, I told you about the local park and how it was, the rivers and stuff were starting to dry up. The lake was
so it
starting
sounds
to
like
dry
you're
up.
getting the same pattern of weather that was leading to like some wildfires, I guess, up in the New York area or something like that a little while back.
Yeah.
That's just weird. That's bizarre.
It is. It's sad and unfortunate, and I hate to see it. But it's nice that at least hopefully we're on the upward curve here. But
yeah,
I don't know.
I also saw on Instagram, I was just flipping through the stories a while back, and one of the photographers we featured in the past was Brittany Colt, and she was passing through Zion on the way back from a trip, and she had posted a video of walking. It's the Riverside Walk, which is from the parking lot to the start of the trail for the Narrows, where you're hiking in the river. And here we are in late November, and it was like peak fall color. I mean, that's the sort of color that you would see maybe at the very beginning of November. And it just, combined with the weather that you've been having out there. Of course, in San Diego, it's 72 degrees and sunny and amazing. But everywhere else, it's chaos. It's a very strange year.
Yeah.
So it doesn't surprise me that you're, having these dry conditions and then, finally getting that little dose of feeling like winter.
And last week I had mentioned about wanting to go to this trail that had reopened, I should say, of waterfalls. But the plan was to go there, I think on Sunday I was going to go. But regardless of the day, I sort of thought about it a little bit more, given the dry weather. Like, this is an hour and a half north. It's not going to be any wetter up there. And so I kind of nixed those plans altogether because the waterfalls wouldn't be very waterfall-y.
No, they'd just be like stone ledges, maybe with a few
trickles
dripping
or something,
rocks on them and stuff. Yeah.
I mean, probably have a lot of cool abstracts and stuff like that, maybe. With rock details. That's
true. You could probably get to areas that you wouldn't otherwise be able to get to. But
I mean, seeing this location for the first time in 7 years and to not see it in what it's like in all of its glory, so to speak.
Yeah, that's true.
Would kind of be, I don't know, could be deemed as a little disappointing. At least for some. I don't know if I'd take that way, but regardless. Yeah, so there's that. One of the things that I want to talk about, though, was I want to do more with our Patreon account.
Okay. What do you have in mind?
A couple different things. So I was thinking, and I want to get listener feedback on this as much as possible, because I want it to be things that you as a listener are, excited about and actually would like to participate in and have a reason to give us money and support the show.
Yes.
One of the earliest ideas that I had was doing stickers, doing like merch, so to speak. So I might throw some stickers up on the Patreon as like, I know they have a shop functionality, so I might go through that way, or I want to play around with it a little bit and see what sticks.
Literally.
With stickers. Yeah. Glad we're on the same page here today, Ben.
Yeah.
It's nice. We had also mentioned about offering discount codes or exclusive discount codes. That's more something on your end if you would want to do that versus on mine, because I don't really have a shop, so to speak.
That's definitely something that'd be pretty easy to do on my end.
And then some of the other ideas that I had was like doing a print of the month sort of tier. I have to look into the legality aspect of that. I suppose if we do it as like a $50 tier, each of us gives an 8x10 and somebody gets, or don't do it as a raffle, then it wouldn't legally matter.
There's some weird stuff like that. Like I had some old equipment that I just wanted to like give away. And then when you're looking into it, you're like, we can't like do that legally. We can't like give away.
It's like gambling
stuff.
Gambling or something like that. Raffle laws. It depends state to state, and it's
weird.
It's too messy for me to even try and bother.
Yeah.
So the print of the month idea should be okay if that's something that you're interested in offering. I figure it could be another tier that we would add. Doing an 8x10 inch print, each of us offering one for the print of the month, and figuring out the logistics around that, like how often or what we would have to charge per month to make it worthwhile for you and I as well. And all of this, obviously, I'm just speaking out loud, thinking out loud a little bit. I just figured
pictures of me in spandex.
I think that would be a different tier.
Yeah, the one where they pay not to get that.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's like the $1 tier, and everybody else that listens just somehow is automatically sent if they don't pay $1 each month. And then the other idea that I had, and this one was really sparked by something else that I wanted to talk about today. So I know that there are a couple different podcasts that will do, or that will offer like monthly Zoom sessions, like monthly meetings on Sunday or something, where the listeners, the supporters of the show can all get together, however many of the three of us.
That can be kind of cool.
Yeah. And I figure too, we could offer like portfolio reviews.
Yeah. I like that.
I figure that one might be the easiest to implement.
Logistically, it's easier, especially if there's some built-in stuff. And I'm not sure what Patreon has for this, if they have some like built-in, back-end stuff for that. But,
and I mean, even so, it's not that difficult to set up a recurring Zoom meeting like once a month and just have a link for the designated tiers.
Yeah, because I honestly don't have a lot going on. I ride bike.
You don't say.
I print pictures. I take pictures of rocks. I destroy cameras.
Meanwhile, I've got more on my plate than ever, but I want to keep adding to it.
Just keep adding more. It'll be like your library, like your towering pile of books. Yeah.
I figure if I keep adding, at least some of the things are going to get done. Not unlike the 2 articles and 2 monograph reviews that I technically have due today that I have not started.
Yeah.
But let's not tell anybody about that.
No one needs to know about that.
No, not at all. I figured that I feel like we should do more with the Patreon.
Yeah. Not
like as a selfish thing of like, ooh, I want more people to subscribe. Like I do, but I want to be giving whatever I can to it.
Yeah.
And I feel bad for the current subscribers because I'm so bad when it comes to editing and getting up early access. And I know it's one of those, like, probably shouldn't feel bad about it, but because of how busy I actually am.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's one of those things like I have it in there that you'll get early access to episodes, and today's early access to an episode was literally an hour difference because until this morning, I didn't have time to edit this past week's episode, the previous episode.
Yeah.
So I want to do more with it. And I want the feedback from people. I want to know what you as a listener would like to see and would like to, what would get you to support the show even at the various levels. So I'm going to sit down later on today and start to draft up some ideas, and Ben, I'll send it over to you, some of my thoughts and everything with it.
Yeah, and I think the key with this, as well as with most things, is to have it where it's sustainable.
Yeah, of course.
And I really do like the idea of doing the live stream sort of thing.
Monthly Zoom things. Yeah,
I think that could be kind of cool.
Yeah, and I figured too with that we could have different. So like it could be that everyone who supports gets access to the monthly Zoom sessions. That way, there's no like, oh, you have to support at $10 a month to access it. Like I feel like that's meh.
Yeah.
Anyone who supports it monetarily will get access to the link to join. And then maybe with the portfolio reviews, it costs a little bit more per month. That way, it'll also, if we do that as part of the Zoom sessions, it wouldn't be as many people, perhaps, as many images, etc. Figure out different rules and such for that.
Yeah.
But I think that would be a cool thing to do too.
Yeah.
At least it gives us something to talk about.
Yeah.
Besides just
Spandex
staring at each other and be like,
puppies.
hey.
Well, they can actually see. Well, you know what? Maybe Oliver and Emmy could just talk to each other.
That is true. Yeah. Yes.
They've never met each other, so yeah. And the cats, yeah. But yeah, I think there's something to be said about that. I think it's something that I've thought would be interesting to do, and I think it's also one of the things where you just kind of figure it out as you go, figure out what works, figure out how to streamline things, as with many things. So I think that'd be a fun thing.
Yeah. So for everyone listening, I don't know why I default to that.
Yeah.
Like for those listening, it's everyone listening. Yeah. I can't get over that. Regardless, for you, send me an email, send Ben an email, whoever, and if you have any sort of feedback on what you would like to see, I would appreciate it. Make my life a little bit easier and make it a little bit more community driven.
And I will, if we do the live stream, I will show up in spandex for some of those. But it's just upper body shot. You're not gonna have to worry about the whole thing. But yeah. The whole thing is for that other tier.
That's for the $100 a month tier.
The OnlyFans, yeah.
Exactly.
So we since recording last week, I don't know if I had submitted the zine for production yet. I don't think I had. I think I was close to it, but I don't think I had yet. But I submitted the zine for production. I went with 275 copies this year. Last year was 350. And so, but I have it set so that there's basically going to be none left over. So whatever is on my website right now reflects like literally what's left. I really look forward to how that turns out. So we're recording this on a Friday. They said it's going to ship on Monday, and it's coming ground from the Midwest. So it'll take a few days or whatever. So I'll probably have it by the end of the week. But I look forward to how that turned out. I've been working on the print portfolios. I made all the prints. I still got this table set up in my office where I'm going through and putting the 3 latest prints in with the other prints and then the vellum sheet and everything. So that's all getting assembled, waiting for when the zines show up. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. But at least I'm getting to the point now where things are all coming together, which is nice. But I really do look forward to next year, when I will be doing this during the month of like September. And just the thought that I could perhaps go on multiple fall trips. I mean, even this year is an unusual year, as I was mentioning earlier, about how the fall color is really late in southern Utah. And the fact that I could like go back on a whole separate trip and then gather more work when, other lower elevation areas are showing the fall color. And I think it speaks to kind of what I was mentioning earlier in terms of, finding more streamlined ways of doing things. And making it so it's sustainable. And so it's, if anyone's interested in doing the print portfolios, it's a lot of work. It's worth it, but man, it's a lot of work.
Yeah. I've thought about doing them for a long while now, and largely because of course, seeing you and your success with them, and just not even on a monetary aspect of it, but just seeing your work put together like that every year.
Yeah.
I would even consider doing one just for myself every year is something that I should probably start doing. Just a nice collection of, I don't know, 10 to 15 images of like your best images from each year, and seeing that lined up and being able to go through those would be cool. It's funny because I was actually just looking today. I forget how I came across it, but I came across this guy. He is an East London-based bookbinder by the name of Piotr Jarosz. Definitely not pronouncing that right, but I'll have a link down below. He obviously is a bookbinder, and he makes these portfolios that are absolutely stunning. And he's done them for a couple different photographers, one of which is Jeff Masamori. And Jeff has a 1-of-1 single edition collection of 54 8x10-inch prints and 15 4x5-inch snapshots called The Raisin at the End of the Hot Dog. And it's a look at the state of travel today and what happens in a place that has, in large parts, been reduced to a product, speaking primarily on Iceland.
Yeah, I could totally see that. I've never been there, but I could totally see how it has changed in that sense. Yeah.
And this is like the photographs, everything from this collection that Jeff has looks beautiful. It looked great. But the box, the portfolio box that it's set in is gorgeous. I mean, let me see if I can find the specific one.
Producing stuff like that is very expensive.
Yeah.
Like even if you just buy like, not even, in this case, it's something that's custom made. But like if it's something that's even just like commercially available, it's very expensive. But yeah, when you have a craftsman, produce it, especially as like a 1-of-1. Yeah, but that goes along well with the fact that it is a 1-of-1.
Yeah, I just sent you 2 links in the chat here. The first one is Piotr's website, imakebooks.cargo.site.
Oh, yeah.
And that shows his portfolios there, and you can find the Raisin at the End of the Hot Dog one along there. And then the second one is Jeff's site, which I love his website too. Very minimalistic, very simple. And again, it shows the actual portfolio box. And that's something really that I would consider heavily doing, especially as I think of how I want to shape this Memento Mori series that I have. This would definitely, if I do this way, it would definitely be a 1-of-1, not for sale, like strictly for myself kind of thing, because it would be very expensive to produce this in a larger collection than just 1-of-1.
Yeah.
Though then again, who knows? I mean, it wouldn't be $150 for the full portfolio, though. It would definitely be closer, over $1,000 because of the upfront cost.
Yeah, and that's the challenge with anything really is, the more you produce of something, the more reasonable the price can be, and then it can appeal to a broader audience, versus, trying to make something extremely exclusive, which at that point you have to charge so much for it that very much limits, the number of people that would potentially be interested in it. But then also, if you don't take that step, you'll never really know. So that's definitely the challenging part of it. One of the things I did for the portfolio this year was doing the film box portfolios, where some of them are bundled in. Some of my film boxes have notes on them and stuff, which is kind of a fun way of,
recycling.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Recycling. But my whole thing has been try to make it personal while also having a decent number of them. By putting in all kinds of personal touches and all kinds of stuff along those lines, which I think is one of the reasons why people enjoy them. But yeah, it's a difficult balance to strike. And even today when I was going through and finishing up assembling the print portfolios, I was looking at it, I'm like, this is a lot of print portfolios. I mean, an edition of 150, which is what I do, because that's just kind of the sweet spot in terms of like a roll of paper. If I just print the whole roll of paper, I think I get around 140 or so prints. So I can just dedicate an entire roll to running one particular image. And then, as the edition sells through, I'll just do, some more prints to get the remaining bit. But that being said, when they're sitting there stacked up, it's like, this is a lot. 150 doesn't feel like a lot when I put it up for pre-order, but when I'm actually putting them together, I'm like, this is a lot of work.
Yeah.
So
that's why I say, like, if I don't know, there's a reason why I haven't attempted to do a portfolio set before.
Yeah.
Just because I know how much work it is from talking to you, from talking to some others that have managed to do it, and also making sure that you have the ability to sell through, because the last thing that you want is 150 different portfolio box sets sitting in your room at the end of the day after all that work.
Exactly. It's a matter of scaling things up so that you, at least in my case, it has been a rather predictable amount where, like, I have a good feeling of what's going to happen each year. And actually, one of the reasons for that is because, 90-something% of the people that are buying them are repeat customers.
Yeah.
And I see the same names every time, which is awesome. But yeah, if you're just getting started with it, you would not want to scale up to the full size. I would keep it small. And I mean, if anyone who's listening is thinking about doing a print portfolio, just like with what you were saying, Cody, make one for yourself. Get a feeling for the materials, the process, get a feeling for what it takes. And there's something about assembling everything together. I don't know, maybe it's a bit like, I don't know if there's an analogy there in terms of, looking at your pictures on the computer screen is a bit like almost like a streaming music service where there's like nothing's tangible. Everything is just kind of in disarray. But once you have things assembled and printed, and then you go through from one image to the next, it's like a dedicated album, something like, I don't know whether it's vinyl or whether even it's just a CD, but you go, from one song to the next. There's something that happens between going from one photo to the next in terms of how they relate to each other. And that's one of the things I put a fair amount of attention into, is to make sure that the images play nice with each other, in addition to standing on their own, which I guess in some ways is a little bit like designing a book, where if you're going to have two images on facing pages, they should relate to each other and play nice with each other, versus some of them will just, have their own page or whatever. And also the zine that put together, I enjoy that creative aspect as well, because it's the same thing. You're just laying things out and making sure that things, they fit as a whole in addition to individually. And that's something that you don't get unless you print your work and you go through the process of thinking everything through. So I think it's a good exercise to do, especially now that you got that, that printer, you might as well. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just thinking about this a little bit more as you were talking, and Murray Livingston does these, and I've seen them done by others as well. I think Simon Baxter used to offer one where they're just print portfolios of, Murray does them in 5 to 12 prints, depending. It includes a presentation box, of course, and often additional essays and information sheets.
Yeah.
And they're just themed portfolio prints.
So going back to the back catalog.
Yeah, more of like, he has one here. I hear Oliver in the background going off.
All of a sudden, I have an automated treat dispenser, which I can throw a few out and it gets him quiet.
Very, very clever.
Yeah.
He has one, Murray has one here that's from Scotland. And it's just a collection of, I believe, 12 photographs. 12 like 8 by 10 inch A4, because he's over in the UK. He's special. A4 photographs just taken from a trip in Scotland. And it's almost like a pull apart book of a sort. in the sense that they're just like yours. I mean, loose prints in a portfolio, like a box set, but they're themed. He has 2 other ones here that one is Winter Trees 2 and the other is Winter Trees. Just 5 photographs that come together with a little story or something about them, little essays about them. And that's just, I think that's a cool way to do it too, because it's not, I mean, regardless when you do it, even if it's year by year, like with yours, people are still going to buy like the 2019 ones if you had them for sale. Yeah. Because it's not like a calendar where they go bad in that sense. But here too, you can get different ones. I just think this might be a better way of doing it for someone like me, where I may not produce a lot of photographs through a year, or I may be collating my photographs into a true collection, versus anything else. But I guess this is all just to say there's a lot of different ways to do it.
For sure. And I think that's what the great thing about it is that there are so many different ways to approach it. And, which certainly, there's a lot of variables in terms of the style of work, the type of work, how deep the body of work is. So there's definitely a lot to be said about that. And it's been really interesting to see how other people have, created that. And the other thing too, like on the back end, so for me, it gives me very clearly defined goals and objectives for the year. And it gives me a sense of purpose too, which is nice. I can see how if I have obviously a pretty decent back catalog, and there's, I could at some point maybe have some sort of like anniversary edition of, older work or, from some past year or location or stuff like that. But man, it's a lot of work to put them together. So I don't think that will happen, but you never know.
Yeah. I like to overthink all of this kind of stuff, clearly, if you can't tell. But like, I think too, I think it's David Ward that has it, who we featured 2 or 3 episodes ago. But on his page, he has print collections, which are just 3 prints that you buy all together, that ship all together, that are themed. Like he has a snow collection, a magical decay, an autumn collection.
That's cool.
Like I said, just different ways of doing things. And I have no idea what I want to do moving forward. So I like to collect as many ideas as possible, it seems. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Always good to think. Always good to overthink. Well, I mean, not always good, but it's good to overthink. Underthinking is not great.
it's good to think. It's not good to ruminate.
Yes. So speaking of ruminating, I was buying some peanut butter a little while back.
What? Yeah. How are we getting into this? How does this have anything to do?
We're going peanut butter. So,
Ben, we're supposed to stay on topic.
This is, we already covered spandex. So next up is peanut butter.
And we covered spandex. We talked about the puppies a little bit.
We did.
All right, go ahead.
So whenever I go on my trips, the peanut butter and jelly sandwich is king when it comes to lunches and stuff. Mm-hmm, and so before going on the trip, I will stop by the store, grab some peanut butter, grab some jelly, grab some bread. But I find myself buying different stuff than if I'm at home. And so when I'm in the field, they have like these squeezable packets of peanut butter.
We've talked about these before. Yeah. I think there was some instance, whether it was a dream or I had thought it would be funny if you were sharing it with a black bear.
Oh, yes.
I think we had mentioned that at some point.
It was me hiking through the Sierra with a mouthful of peanut butter while I was breathing through my nose.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. There we go. Okay.
But the stuff I normally buy comes in a jar, and it's basically it's healthier. It's basically just peanuts and salt. The one that comes in the squeezable tubes, there's added sugar, there's palm oil, but there's this ultimate conundrum in terms of, the squeezable one is less expensive, it's less healthy, and it's worse for the environment, but it's convenient and it's cheap. Versus the other option, which I buy usually when I'm just at home, which comes in a glass jar. It is a bit more expensive and it is more healthy. There's no palm oil, which is bad for the environment. There's no added sugar, which isn't, very healthy. and it's better for the environment because it's a glass jar as opposed to plastic. But just seeing that conundrum and seeing this entire aisle filled with the stuff that usually comes in plastic that's less healthy, worse for the environment, and more convenient. I was just standing there in the Target looking at this. I'm like, we're screwed as a human race. We've gone down this path. There's no coming back. Because every time, people are going to choose something that's cheaper and less healthy. I don't know. I was having like this little dilemma in the Target the other day just for that reason.
So you're telling me that it took you all this time and staring at peanut butter in an aisle at Target to realize that we are officially screwed as a human race?
Well, I mean, I've known this for a while, but it was that little light bulb confirmation of there's no coming back from this path. There's no, like, people are not going to buy. You know, I think by and large, if you look at things that are less expensive and more convenient, it's going to always come at the expense of one's health or the environment or both. And I just think with our modern society, there's no going back. So it's just one of those like little moments of where I'm like, well, it's been fun. We're going to destroy this place. I don't know.
Just think, you really won't have to deal with that bad of the repercussions, though.
This is true.
Like, you're of an age that you will be dead by the time that all the real stuff is getting really bad.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to be like, I don't know, I'm going to give you like 50 years, so I'll be not that far behind of you, but still, I'll have at least a decade where things are really, really bad and you'll be laughing about it in your grave.
I will. and just
you'll be rotting away as a tree or something, some hippie California thing that you get repurposed into a tree.
Yeah. That actually sounds
whatever they're doing out there.
And then the tree will get like burnt down in a forest fire. Like, well, that was good.
The tree won't even be like 2 feet tall by the time that it's destroyed.
Yeah. But yeah, it just, I don't know. Like, in just between seeing stuff like that and then the very bizarre weather that we're talking about earlier, I don't know. Everyone just has their head in the sand, and it gives me very, very little hope. But that all being said, something that I've mentioned in the past is that, you know, and also there's no adult in the room in terms of like, oh, this is what we need to do to, you know, avert this situation, because everyone's just, you know, in it for themselves for the most part. But I will say that some of the things that I've done over the past year, which we've talked about here before, in terms of like, oh, I'm composting stuff now, you know, going like plant-based stuff, it at least makes me feel a little bit better that I'm at least having some degree of an impact, you know.
Yeah, but you're at least doing your part, or as much of it as you possibly can.
But obviously, that's not going to reverse anything. Even if everyone did that, things aren't going in a good direction. But I don't know.
I mean, I think about that too, like the decisions that I make on a day-to-day. And I'm not in a place right now where I'm financially secure enough to make all the decisions that I can.
Yeah.
And that's really the most unfortunate part of it, is the fact that you can blame people to a degree. Like, yes, we are as a species very selfish.
Oh, yeah.
Like, and that will be our downfall. Yeah. Like, there's no doubt about that. But there's also the part of it where you go to the Target, and there's a reason why all that stuff is so popular, because it's so cheap.
Yeah.
And because most people, or a lot of people, can't afford the more expensive peanut butter or whatever.
But it's not, the other thing too is it's not that much more expensive. It's just a little bit.
Even at the end of the day, 50 cents to some people makes a massive difference.
Yeah. But
that's huge, because if they're trying to eat healthier or whatever, I mean, some of the families that I work with, like, you see the other side of things. Like, I personally can't afford that nicer peanut butter that's more environmentally friendly, that's a little bit healthier, etc. But these people who had no other choice but to buy a car and have a $500 car payment because their other car wasn't reliable.
Yeah.
And they also just paid their taxes. And so now they're really short on funds, and they can only work because like certain jobs or for a certain amount of money or whatever the case is because of certain needs that they have, or disabilities in the family or whatever the case is. And the list goes on. So I absolutely understand why so many people go for the cheaper options, because it is so rough trying to make a living and trying to afford life as a whole, that a lot of people aren't privileged enough to think about these things and to make these smarter or healthier changes.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. That's a top-down problem in my eyes, that we as a country, society, etc., as a race really need to come together and realize what is better.
Yeah.
Is it better to have billions of dollars right now but not have a planet in 100 years, or vice versa?
And also some of those decisions in terms of like, this peanut butter is 50 cents more or whatever, it also comes at the expense of one's own health, perhaps in the long run, where it's just I don't know. I think it speaks also to the emphasis in the current culture about, trying to have the short-term gains, but at the expense of, the long-term stuff. Like, I don't know. It's just, I don't know. It's one of the things where
there's no easy solution.
There's no easy solution. But also, as one gets older and then you see how everything is set up, is kind of like, is no one in charge of this? Is there no? Yeah, I don't know. It's not great. It's not great.
Yeah. We'll leave this conversation for the adults in the room.
Yeah. Wherever
once
they are.
we find them.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There's got to be some smart people out there, but I don't know.
Yeah, but they're all doing other things, apparently. Back when we were talking about the Patreon things and the monthly Zoom idea, I had mentioned about portfolio reviews. Yeah. And I wanted to touch on this a little bit before we go on for Artist of the Week and wrap everything up. So I had mentioned in previous episodes, maybe a couple months back, whenever it was, about wanting to try my hand at teaching and helping people out. Mm-hmm. So portfolio reviews was one of those ideas that I had. And I had one of our listeners reach out to me maybe a month ago, a little bit less than, and asked if I would be willing to do a review of some of his work. Okay. And I'm like, yeah, I'm all for that. Like, send it over. And so he did. I finally got around to doing it. And thankfully, he understands that I have a lot going on, especially with the job. When he messaged me, I was just starting to transition into it. Yeah. And so he wasn't in a rush with anything. So finally got around to doing it, took a look at his work. And honestly, it was a lot of fun. It was quite enjoyable to do that. And I did it in a very asynchronous manner. So I've done a few portfolio reviews with different photographers, not many, but the one that I think I got the most out of, or at least that I enjoyed the most having done, was one with Brooks Jensen.
Yeah, I remember when you were talking about that one.
Right. So he does it in the same way that I decided to do it. I copied what he does. Mm-hmm. So I took all of the images, the 12 images that were sent to me, and I put them into a fresh Lightroom catalog that I'm going to use just as for this purpose for portfolio reviews if I do any in the future. Mm-hmm. And then I just sat down in my closet here and I talked about what I saw while obviously recording the screen, kind of like a voiceover. Yeah. And I have a list here beside of me of what I wanted to hit on, like overall first impression of the images, because I went into this blind. Like, I didn't want to have any, I wanted my reactions to be genuine and on the spot. Yeah. So I didn't look at the images beforehand.
I like the idea of the first reaction, because that's something that a lot of, you don't really have a chance of having that with your own work for the most part. It's something where it takes time to get to know the image and everything, and you become image blind after a while. So I like that approach for sure.
Yeah. And then I would just talk about the composition of the image, the tonality and editing, the balance and the cropping, and then all throughout, any recommended changes or alterations that I'd make to it.
Was it color or black and white or both?
A little bit of both
Okay.
for this one. Yeah. Not really being specific. I actually did 2 of them. The other individual was someone that I had also mentioned that I'd be willing to help him with any sort of looking over images and that kind of deal. So it was fun to do. And it was cool because I sent that off to him on earlier this week, I think it was. And I got this long email back from him. It was just so cool to see and cool to read through because he was so appreciative of everything. And he thought that I had done for the first one that I had done or the second one that I had done. He mentioned how he had done portfolio reviews with 4 other photographers in the past, and mine was among the most beneficial to him.
Do you know if it was the same body of work that all the other photographers reviewed, or if it was different?
I think it was different.
Okay. Which I would assume because, that's something that people have a tendency to change up a fair amount is to keep gathering more work.
Yeah. And I mean, he said, I've done a couple of these now paid for with other photographers. Honestly, yours was by far the best and most thoughtful. I'm not just saying that, I wouldn't. I think you're the 4th I've done over the last 4 years where I've been trying to progress as a photographer. I like the way you worked through the images and gave me your thoughts, and I appreciated you taking the time to make some amendments. I also really like the asynchronous approach. It's possibly just my personality type, but I think sometimes when I've done these things as a conversation where I've been presenting my work live, I found it hard to absorb the viewer's response and construct my own explanations, etc. So there's clearly more to that, but I don't know. It was just something that's what sparked the idea of offering it for the Patreon as part of that monthly Zoom call, because I enjoy helping others, providing feedback, whatever I can, teaching others little tips and tricks that I've picked up along the way. So.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's great that you had a very good experience with that because it seems like it confirms a feeling that you've had for a little while and one of the reasons why you were interested in doing that to begin with. But yeah, I think that would be interesting. And actually, and from the standpoint of, if we do something like that through the Patreon, it would be also very interesting to get multiple perspectives and kind of see how things align, which will also be kind of an interesting aspect. Because I know that you will look at an image differently than I will. And it would be very interesting to see, what things, were in common, what things, different perspectives. But yeah, I think that'd be interesting.
Yeah, I really do like that idea. I'm going to have to set that up. It's definitely one of them that we will do. Cool.
Cool. I think it is time for the artist of the week. So this week, while I was panic scrolling through Instagram shortly before we started recording, I came across Bill Ferngren. So on Instagram, his username is Bill Ferngren. So BILLFERNGREN. Really beautiful work. A lot of small scene detail type shots.
Shocker there.
I know, right? There is some black and white mixed in there along with some color, so a little something for everyone. Generally a soft color palette, some really nice moody winter scenes with some mist and fog, a lot of emphasis on simplicity, some beautiful fall images, just lots of textures and colors, some close-ups of wood with some of the interesting kind of the burls and all that sort of stuff. Just a really wonderful and consistent body of work. And it was one of the, as I was scrolling through and I saw his work, I'm like, oh, this is definitely right up the alley of, the type of photographers like to feature.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just looking through a little bit of his work right now. And of course, Instagram seems to be having difficulties all the time for me lately. Trying to look on through the website, but there's one, I think it's in his top row of images, posted about 7 days ago. It's a black and white photograph. Almost looks like ice. Maybe it's the side of the wood. You know the one that I'm talking about here?
I'm looking at it right now. And I'm trying to figure out what I'm looking at. It's really cool. It almost looks like writing, which is, so he says foam.
It's just
so it's foam.
really nice. Oh, it is foam. Okay.
Yeah.
See, they're taking away things that I can see, and I don't like that.
But yeah, this one is interesting. It looks like almost like an alien. It's like the more you look at it, the more you see. It looks like some sort of like alien language or something like that. Just absolutely fascinating. It's one of the ones where you look at it, I'm like, I'm not sure what I'm looking at, but it looks really cool. And there's one right next to it.
There's another one that he
floating
has
grass, which is really
back
cool.
in September, end of September. It's the tree branches over water, looks like.
Yes.
Black and white.
It's like multi-layered in a way, which is really cool.
Yeah, I love the layering of that. Just the abstract nature of it. It's very chaotic, but it's composed in a very nice way, which can be very difficult to do.
Yeah. And the photo just before that is some water crashing over rocks. I don't know if it's a waterfall or if it's just like along the coast with, a wave coming in and then the water draining down rocks. But whatever it is, like that image plays very nicely with the one that you mentioned, even though they're very different. But it has some, like the bottom of the image has some parts that are kind of similar to the top of the other one. And then directly below that, there is a water reflection shot with some plants and stuff. Looks like it's in a pond or something. And I'm not typically a big reflection kind of person. Something about reflections, just like, I don't know. I don't know what it is about them, but like I've not really been one to seek out reflections, but this one's different. I think it's because of the movement, the visual movement of all the plants, both above the water and then the reflection in the water, where it creates this really dynamic sense of motion that, even though yes, it is a reflection, for whatever reason, it doesn't feel perfectly symmetrical. If there's a visual emphasis to it where it has some directionality, which is pretty nice, where it's not just like a straight reflection photo. And then the one before that, it's like a misty day. There's this overhanging branch over like a field with some grass, and there's like some branches hanging down. And again, just very simple, very clean, and just a very, very well thought out composition.
I'm just scrolling through his website right now, through his inspiration gallery. And yeah, he's got a lot of really nice work. It's interesting that his gallery seems to shift every time that you reload it.
In terms of like the work that's being shown?
So if you go on to his inspiration gallery, he has different tags that you can sort by.
Yeah.
And if you have just the default show all tag, the images change every time that you reload the page and turns their order, which I've never seen done before. But that also makes it really difficult if I want to
mention a specific one. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, there is one here just because it's up and I've seen it a little bit earlier, called Ice Bubbles 2. Maybe that one's popped up for you too before. Just a abstract or a intimate photograph of ice bubbles and the various plants and grasses that are trapped beneath. And there's almost two, now that I look at this a little bit, you can see like a smiley face made from the bubbles. Which I think is just so cute. Almost like
I'm looking at that same one.
Almost like the ice is happy to have trapped whatever's beneath it.
Yeah. That one's interesting because it is the ice is so clear that it doesn't greatly distort what's beneath it. It has just the right amount where things show through, but it almost looks more like there's like a layer of like, plastic over the top of the plants or whatever, instead of it just being kind of completely obscuring what's below it. So that's definitely a pretty cool one.
And if you go into under the tag close-ups, he has a photograph called Space Oddity 1. That's just fun to look at. I love it must be ice on the left-hand side. At least that's the assumption.
Oh yeah.
I'm not entirely
It has
positive.
a nice curved shape, almost like the side of a guitar or something like that. Is the division between the two of them.
And the fractals that you see that are just creeping out into this dark, like, galactic blackness on the right-hand side of the image. I love that. That's just
That's one of the things that I often look for when it comes to composition is, I call it subject interaction, where in this case you have sort of the light side of the ice and then the dark side of the ice, but it's that interaction between those two parts that you mentioned in terms of, it looks like it's the light side kind of reaching out into the dark, or maybe being like drawn out into the dark. I think it's through subject interaction that you build a sense of story. And this one with like the little light specks on the dark side, you kind of start to think like, oh, is that, what came from the left onto the right? It's a very interesting aspect of it. And I think it takes a very well-trained eye to not only find a simple composition that works for a scene like that, but to see beyond that and to see that with this particular photo, so much of the story of it lies in those fine little details that most people would never notice when they actually look at the subject. So that's really cool.
Speaking on that subject interaction too, he has balance of nature, which is just these ferns coming down from the right-hand side of the image against a tree or bark of a tree. Again, just seeing that dichotomy almost, that the interaction. And he has, like you said, a very, very fine eye for especially the close-ups and the abstractions within them. I mean, there's so many different images here that I could point out just in this close-up gallery alone that would make for a great print or perhaps, a portfolio box set of images.
Exactly.
There you go. Bring it full circle.
Yeah. So definitely recommend checking out his work.
Yes, absolutely.
So again, on Instagram, he is Bill Ferngren. And also, it looks like his website is stillbill.se. Very beautiful work.
I hope you enjoyed our creative banter. You can learn more about Cody's work by visiting his website, codyschultz.com. And you can find my work at benhorn.com. For further discussion, join us at patreon.com/creativebanter. It's a place where we can interact with you, the listener. And although we greatly appreciate those who contribute by joining a tier, discussions are open to everyone, whether you're a paying member or not. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you around next time.